I've got gin. I'm ready to go. It is the beautiful time of 1 a.m. here in Sydney, Australia. What better time to have a couple of gins with my friends on the other side of the world? I think we'll get started. My name is Wes. Everybody, Wesley, if I'm in trouble, and it's 1 a.m. on a Friday morning in Sydney and I'm drinking gin, so I could be in a lot of trouble here. On the screen as well is my colleague Claire, who looks after the UK and Europe for Four Pillars Gin. And, that's what we're here to talk about today, is Four Pillars Gin, and we are a little Australian gin distillery down in Victoria in Southeast Australia, and we have been making some bloody good gin from there for about the last 9 years now. So when I say we're a little Aussie gin distillery, we are a little bit bigger than a little distillery these days. If I see that a few of you have heard of Four Pillars, so that's exciting to see. We've been in some of the great bars of London and Manchester and the other great cities of England for a little while now. So good to see that you've heard of us. It's always gin o'clock summer in the world. Yes, Zoe, you're right. 2 out of, oh no, Maurice, you've got a smashed gin. That is upsetting. So if you haven't heard of us at all, which you probably haven't because you're in England and we're in Australia, we are Australian makers of gin. We've been doing that since 2013. Out of a town called Hillsville, which is in the Yarra Valley, which is a beautiful wine region, and that is just outside of Melbourne, Australia's second largest city. Yeah, you can flick to the next one, Claire, if you like. It's a little message from my bosses. Today, or tonight rather, I am in the Four Pillars Laboratory, which is our bar in Sydney. And this isn't a beautiful backdrop screen behind me. It's a real bar with a disco ball, and it's quite beautiful. So we opened this bar a year and a half ago. The idea was that, we make our gin down outside of Melbourne, and we've got a beautiful distillery there, and I'll show you some pictures in a second. But we thought we needed a home in Australia's largest city, in Australia's international city, somewhere where people could come and try our gins and try awesome gin drinks. And so opening a bar in the middle of a pandemic was not the smartest idea, but it's all going okay, and borders are open again, and we're excited, super excited to be inviting international friends back into our bar and our distillery as well. Barbara, the Yarra Valley is gorgeous indeed. So I am actually from the Yarra Valley. I'm a real Yarra Valley boy. Oh, Zoe, you've all been there. This is unreal. And Lydia's already on the Shiraz Gin. Excellent. I'm going to have to speed up this welcome chat, won't I, so I can actually get into the gin drinking myself, which is why I do this. You can flick through to the next slides if you like there, Claire. So just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what we're about. And the way that today will work is I'll tell you a little bit about Four Pillars, a little bit about where we make our gins and our homes. When I say our homes, I mean our distillery and our bar here, and what sort of experience people get when they come to visit. And then we're going to run through 3 of our gins today, 3 of our 3 most popular gins, and have a little drink of them together, hopefully, and talk about how we might want to drink them. So why Aussie gin, I guess, is the question. We think that there's something pretty special about making gin here in Australia, where we have got not only an incredible food and dining and bar scene, and a creativity in that space, but we've also got some awesome weather, which means we can grow things like beautiful oranges and lemons, great Aussie citrus all year round. And we've got access to some really unique native ingredients that you simply cannot grow anywhere else in the world. And it turns out they go really well in gin. So we've been making gin, as I said, since 2013 now. In that time, we've gone to become Australia's leading distillery. So across all categories, we're the biggest now, certainly leading the charge in the gin space. You can just keep flicking through if you like, Claire, just speed me up, otherwise I'll rabbit on. And in 2019 and 2020, the IWSC, which is the International Wine and Spirits Competition out of London, named us the International Gin Producer of the Year. Now, to give you some context, you can win awards for your gin at the, the Oxfordshire County Show, right? You can win a medal anywhere for the gin that you make, and it may not mean a great deal, but there's a few competitions that are really important, and the IWSC is arguably the most important. And that award that we won it's kind of like winning the Oscar for best film. So for Australian gin distillery to take out the world's top award, not once but twice, 2 years in a row, and even most recently this year, we were named Distiller of the Year and Brand Innovator of the Year at the Gin Magazine Awards in London, the World Gin Awards. And we overtook Hendrick's as the #1 premium gin in Australia in the last year as well. We don't make gin to win awards. We make gin because we think gin is delicious. We're pretty passionate about, or very passionate about flavour and about awesome drinks with our gins. But winning awards is great, right? Because it opens up some doors for us internationally, and I guess gives us that big tick that we're still doing something right. That's our distillery there. That is a renovated old timber mill, an old shed, basically, half of which has been our production space for the last 7 or 8 years. The other half, a beautiful bar, tasting room, somewhere where people come in and smell the botanicals and try the different gins and hear the stories. Usually on a weekend, there is a queue, maybe a 50-person long queue to get in there and have a drink. You can keep just flicking through, Claire. We are about to open our brand new distillery. I think it's frozen. Oh, there's a picture of our big still. We've got big, beautiful Christian Karl stills from Germany, which give us a spirit that is full of flavour, but also really pure. So, and you'll see that as we try these gins in a minute. And we're about to open, that's the artist's impression, our new expanded distillery, which we are very bloody excited about. We think that this is going to be one of the great distillery experiences of the world, maybe. Am I allowed to say that? I hope so. Certainly in Australia. So what we've done is we've nearly tripled our capacity to host visitors in our home there. So the existing building is on the right-hand side. Down this road, we built a mirror image building where we've got we've been able to pull out our bottling line and create space for more stills. So first of all, there's the practical factor there. We can make more gin, which is great, but we're going to have the ability to host up to 200,000 visitors annually. That's our beautiful new copper bar. That bar has got gin tapped directly from the still house through copper pipes into the bar. We've also worked with an Australian tonic company to develop a tapped tonic so that we can get tonic straight into the bar. That's going to reduce our glass waste by 29 tonne of glass each year. This week we got some really, that's the entranceway there. So everything's sort of these beautiful copper and earthy and terracotta tones. And the idea is you go onto one side to look at production and come into the other side to have a great experience and have some food and drinks. There's a gin garden there. And this week on Monday, we received some really exciting news that we are now officially certified as a carbon neutral gin distillery and a carbon neutral gin. We've worked with the global carbon neutral certification body for the last nearly 2 years on achieving that status, which we're super excited about to be leading the way in the sustainability space as well. So as well as saving that glass waste, we've covered the whole place in solar panels. I don't know if you saw in that artist's impression, we've got a fence, or we're calling it a veil, essentially around the whole precinct, which is copper piping, and that works as a water cooling mechanism for us. You can imagine that distilling gin uses a lot of water and a lot of energy, so we're able to use less in that way, and a range of other initiatives and offsets as well to make sure that we are treading gently. I think that as an industry, distilling uses a lot of energy, right? Oh, beautiful shop there. Those are some expensive shelves. They better be They'd better be sturdy shelves with all that gin on there. So we're really stoked to be able to announce that this week. There's a picture of the bar I'm in now, just from the other angle. It looks probably a bit nicer in that fancy photograph there. And so the idea is that going to the Yarra Valley, which is a top thing to do anyway, right? If you're in Melbourne or in Victoria, you've got to go out to the Yarra for the day. It's Chardonnay and Pinot Noir country. You can do the wine trail, and you're only an hour outside of Melbourne, so it's bloody fantastic. The Four Pillars Gin Distillery, however, is the #1 attraction in the region on TripAdvisor. Occasionally, the local zoo jumps into #1 and we jump down to #2, perhaps in school holidays times. But generally, we're sitting at #1. And then, yeah, that's the aforementioned bar, our Four Pillars Laboratory in Surrey Hills, which is a trendy little part of Sydney, I guess. And the idea was that this is where people can come and have a great experience with gin drinks and find out how to drink our drinks, perhaps do a cocktail class, perhaps do a gin making class on our little still here, all sorts of experiences. And we're open, 5 days a week here. It is a lot of fun. Is that the end of the presentation? I think it might be. Did I put any more photos on there? If not, we can shut it off. Oh, just to finish up, I guess, what do we think makes, why should you or anybody care about Australian gin? We just think there's something special about making gin in Australia, and hopefully that you will see by tasting through these gins that they taste like not quite like anything else, because of our abundance of great fresh citrus and awesome, interesting ingredients and creativity. We think it's pretty good. Let's drink some, shall we? That's enough. That's 14 minutes without a drink, which is long enough for me. So we're going to drink. First of all, I think you've got 3 to try, and you can do what you like. You do you, boo. If you find one that you like, you drink that one, stick to that. But I'm going to talk you through our rare dry gin, which is our #1 gin. A bloody Shiraz Gin, which is our #2 kind of bestseller, and then our olive leaf gin, which is something a little bit different as well. We might have a little taste of them neat. We'll talk about what's gone into them and the differences between them, and then I will make a drink with them. How does that sound? Great, I hope. So the rare dry gin is the most important gin we make. It's the very first gin we made. My boss, Cameron, and while I talk about it, I might make a little drink I came up with called the Gin and Tonic. Oh, thanks, Jessica. I like your energy, Jessica. I'm getting out of the fridge a frozen glass because, well, you don't have to freeze your glasses. You do if you're drinking martinis. But frozen glassware is great. Your drink stays colder for longer, right? So I'm going to pour into my glass here a nice 50 ml measure of Four Pillars Rare Dry Gin. Boom. Don't mess around with single measures, right? We're double measure people, I would assume. Yeah, I think that's undebatable. Now, because I like to appreciate my gin neat, I'm going to have a little sip of this first, right? And I suggest you do the same. And this is going to be quite nice straight out of the freezer. If you haven't done a neat gin tasting before, there's a couple of little tricks to it to get the best out of it. What you do not want to do with a straight spirit, right, is you don't want to swirl it around your mouth and aerate it as though it were a wine, because all that's going to do is fuel the alcohol to burn your mouth a little bit more, right? We don't want that. We want to be able to taste the flavours that have gone into the gin. So what you want to do is you want to have a little sip, let it rest across your tongue with your mouth closed around it. While it's resting there, your mouth's going to produce lots of saliva, and saliva is the key to tasting a spirit. Saliva opens up all those botanical oils and those flavour compounds in the gin. And if you can hold for 5 or 10 seconds, you're going to be left with a nice little coating of botanical oils in your mouth. And after you've swallowed, the gin's a gift that keeps giving after you've swallowed, right? You're kind of left with all of this flavour in your mouth. So I'm going to have a little sip. Oh my God. It's elegant, it's balanced, it's got a nice spice base, it's full of citrus. Quite frankly, it's delicious. I'm going to put some ice in there. Lots of ice, because ice is ice's friend, right? The more ice you have, I'm also going to throw it across the bench. So I'm not a real bartender. The more ice you have, the ice keeps itself cold, right? You actually get less dilution in your drink by having more ice. I'm going to garnish this. The most unique thing about this gin is our use of fresh organic Australian oranges in distillation. What's Sarah saying? It's the gin we buy over here, made in Australia or here. Oh no, it's all made in Australia, Sarah. All made in Australia. But that is a good question because it's a little bit like Apple, right? Designed in California, made in China. That's not us. We are 100% Australian, baby. Otherwise, I would not be up at 1 a.m. drinking gin with you guys. I'm going to cut a little orange wedge here. Or not a wedge, maybe a crescent, if you like. I'm going to pop that in there. And today, I'm going to opt for Fever Tree Mediterranean Tonic. You've got to use a good mixer, right? But I think we get that in the UK now, don't we? When we understand, as Fever Tree would say, if 3/4 of your drink is the mixer, mix with the best. I disagree with the 3/4 thing. I'm a bit more of a 1 part to 2 or 3 part kind of guy. So if I've got 50 mils of gin in there, I'm just going to add just about half a bottle. Not too much. You don't want to drown your gin, right? Give it a little stirry stir. And there is a little drink I came up with called the Gin and Tonic. Cheers. And the orange to 4 pillars is a little bit like the cucumber to Hendrix, right? That orange is going to lift up all the flavour that's in there. It's not going to take away from that. And we think that makes one of the most refreshing gin and tonics in the world. And I concur. So the re-dried gin is the gin that I'm done with this now. I just want to sit down and have a drink. I shouldn't have started, should I really? God, that's a good gin and tonic. When we released this in 2013, it's a gin that put us on the map a little bit, I guess. But there was maybe 10 or 12 people making gin here in Australia. Some of them quite good, but some of them also not very good. So there was certainly space there for somebody to come along and make some good Aussie gins. And you guys would know the UK was well into the gin boom at that point in time. So I'm talking 2011, 2012. And the most unique thing about it was our use of fresh organic Australian oranges in distillation. It's not groundbreaking to do that now in 2022, but when we first did that, it was kind of unheard of. Traditionally, all of your London dry styles of gin and most of the European gins would use a dried citrus peel in distillation. But in Australia, we grow fresh organic citrus all year round. When it's not growing down south, it's growing up north. So we then are able to distill our oranges fresh. They get steamed in distillation. Vapor distillation might be something you're familiar with. Famously, Bombay Sapphire is a vapor distilled gin. And we basically steam our oranges. They sit in a little steamy sauna in distillation where hot vapor strips oils out of their skins. And we then get this orange oil coming through to our gin that is vibrant and fresh and fruity and delicious, right? So that's the predominant characteristic of this gin here. But essentially, when that came across international judging tables at spirits competitions back in 2013, people went, my God, what is this? We've never tasted anything quite like it before. As I said, when we started making gin, there was about a dozen people in Australia. There's now well over 200 people making gin and about 400 different gins. So lots of people have obviously clued onto the fact that we've got some really great advantages here in our approach to distilling and the different things that we can use. What I should stress is there is a big base of juniper in this gin. We are firm believers that gin is not gin unless you have a big base of juniper. We are not making a weird orange vodka or anything like that. So all of our gins have got a botanical weight of about 80% juniper. So that's well above many London dry gins. We think that unless you get that beautiful pine forest, pine needle flavour and aroma, then you probably shouldn't be calling yourself a gin. But over that big canvas of juniper, we've layered some really nice spices. Some things like cassia, some star anise for that sweet licorice flavour, some beautiful cardamom and coriander, so very Southeast Asian or chai tea spices. And then the two that I will point out are the two native Australian botanicals that go into nearly every gin that we make. The first one is called lemon myrtle. Lemon myrtle leaf it's Australia's super ingredient, basically. We grow this natively in the northeast of Australia, and it is the world's highest natural source of citral. Citral being one of your main citrus compounds. And if you were to smell this, and I know you can't because we're doing this virtually, but I am coming to the UK in July, so maybe I will meet some of you and I can smuggle some of this in my bag. However, you probably don't want to try and smuggle that in your bag because it looks awfully like something else. If you were to smell it, imagine really, really intense lemon oil, but not that harsh, sharp lemon oil you would get from a lemon, right? This is more like lemon curd, lemon vanilla. It's soft and it's sweet, but it's really intense at the same time. So we can get this beautiful sweet lemon character by distilling with lemon myrtle. And again, when we started, nearly every Aussie distillery is using that now because you're kind of mad not to. And when we started doing that, the international gin community was sort of like, what the hell is this? This is incredible stuff. The other native that we use, I got a random question. Do we send to Canada? I'm going to let you jump in and answer the questions like that, Claire. The bush, yeah. Anya Wendy, yeah, I'm having a drink with Wendy Harrison when I come over. And Jules asked a good question as well. I'm going to get to that one in a second, Jules. The other native that I'll point out is a mountain pepper which grows down in Tasmania, the island at the south of Australia, a little bit in the mountains of Victoria as well. The peppercorn of this native pepper, imagine a regular black peppercorn, but it's a little bit more fiery, a little bit more fruity. Chew on it and you'll feel half of your mouth go numb. And then the leaf gives us this beautiful herbaceous and almost like a white pepper warming spice to our gin. So that works beautifully with those other Southeast Asian spices that I mentioned. We often distill with other things such as strawberry gum, which is a native eucalypt, and imagine like a strawberry chewing gum. It's quite incredible. We use native wattle seed, which is like a burnt toffee caramel kind of flavour that gives us this beautiful creamy oil. And it's been a really fun journey, not just for Four Pillars, but for other people making gin in Australia, seeing what great native ingredients work so well in the gin space. Jules asked about the barrels being named after the mums. That's actually the stills. So we have got 5 Christian Karl copper stills from Germany. Excuse me. Oh, did I just cut off there? Am I on a noise? I'm going to carry on. Somebody will jump in and tell me if something's going wrong, I'm sure. So we've got five copper stills. 3 of those are production stills. The other 2 are small experimental ones, which we do some small batch stuff on, such as the still behind me here. I'm going to do a little camera turn around here and show you behind me is a real life working copper still from Germany. That little still there is the one that many of our gins started their life out on, such as this one here, before we scaled up to a bigger production still. And that'll make about 45 bottles. The name of that still is Eileen, and she is named after my boss Matt's mum. And Eileen is an 80-something-year-old lady who lives in the Midlands. She's never been to visit the bar behind me here or to see her still, but that's the tradition in our business. The very first still we got was named after my boss Cameron's mum, our distiller. His late mother Wilma was a beautiful redhead and she loved her gin. So that was his fitting tribute to mum, and then they carried on the tradition of naming the stills after the mums of the business. So Wilma, Jude, Eileen were the three directors' mums. They ran out of mums, so they moved on to employees. And the first full-time employee, Scotty, his mum's name is Beth, so she got her name on a still. Then Coral got her name on a still. One day, my mother's name is Wendy, which I think is a great name for a still, but I might be a little too far down the list. I reckon I'm 20 or 30th in line to the honour, but if I take out some other people along the way, perhaps I can work my way up. The guy who did your tasting in 2017 was having the next still named after his mother. I wonder if that was Rockstar Elton, because he's in the running. So we've got a new 2,000 litre still, which will be the equal largest still on order to hopefully arrive about halfway through this year, which is pretty exciting. Suzanne's asked, do we do gin classes and how much are they? We do gin classes like this all the time. We do them virtually. We do them here in our Sydney bar. We do them in our Hillsville distillery. We pretty much can't shut up talking about our gin. How much are they? I think they're normally $80 in Australia, but I don't know what we charge on the other side of the world. You know, I'd do your mate, Suzanne. I'll look after you. It's a rare dry gin. It's our Gin and Tonic gin, and that plus that with a wedge of orange is essentially what we built our brand on in Australia. When we launched this, what most people were used to drinking was Gordon's or Beefeater, or perhaps some Hendrick's or Tanqueray if they were feeling fancy. So when that tore onto the scene, people went, oh my God, and it really changed the perception of gin in this country. Not saying that we single-handedly did that, but we played a part in that. Gin number 2 is our Bloody Shiraz Gin, which has developed a bit of an iconic status in the last few years, to the point that we now crush more Shiraz grapes than anybody else in the Yarra Valley. The Yarra Valley's quite a sizable wine region. We've got wineries there like Chandon, De Bortoli, who sell Shiraz in a box as a box wine. So the fact that we crush more than them is really saying something, and a little astonishing, to be honest. The story with this is really quite simple, and it's the experiment that worked. Before we bought our beautiful, moved into our beautiful distillery in Hillsville. Oh, you're all on the next flight. Yes, well, flights are open, you know. My boss flew to the UK 2 days ago. A friend of mine just got back the other day from a 2-week holiday in London with family. I'm coming over in July. So, you know, we're open for business. Get on the plane. Bloody Shiraz Gin, before we built our distillery, we were making gin out the back of a winemaker's shed. A friend of my boss's, a good friend of the business. And he had this very small parcel of Shiraz grapes that he didn't. It was 250 kilograms. So I don't know, imagine 250 bags of grapes from Waitrose or Sainsbury's. They sort of sat there for a day, and they sat there for another day, and Rob wasn't sure what to do with them. So my boss Cam just took them. The story of the Bloody Shiraz Gin really starts with the great Australian tradition of borrowing something from your mate and not giving it back. So Cam took these grapes, de-stemmed them, so took them off the stems, filled a big stainless steel barrel with fresh Shiraz grapes. Then he took the rare dry gin, the most important gin, and he tipped it straight over these grapes. That was at high proof strength. So when this is freshly made off our stills, it sits on around 90% alcohol, right? If you tip 90% alcohol gin straight across some fresh grapes, that just bleeds out everything. It strips out all of that sugar, all of the beautiful colour, a little bit of that tannin and spice that we know from Shiraz, right? We let it sit for about 2 months, about 6 to 8 weeks, giving it a stir every few days, having a little taste. And yeah, that first year he made it, it was 8 weeks, and Cam thought, that's pretty bloody delicious. What do we call it? Well, it's a bloody Shiraz gin, which is obviously a nod to the fact that we quite like to swear a little bit here in Australia, but also that is the process of bleeding the goodness out of the grapes to make this gin. A lot of people ask, is it Shiraz wine? No. Are there Shiraz barrels? No. It is just gin and juice. As Snoop Dogg sang about, it's literally just gin and juice, and it's delicious. So in the UK, you would make, I'm just going to get a fresh glass, I'm still here. In the UK, my grandmother, she lives in West Oxfordshire in a little town, well, not a little, quite a large town called Witney. And I lived there actually for nearly 5 years. Beautiful part of the world. If anyone's from Oxfordshire or West Oxfordshire, give me a little wave in the chat. And every year, Granddad drives Grandma. They're in their 80s, right? Granddad drives Grandma around the laneways of Oxfordshire, and they'll pick their slow berries, and then it's Granddad's job to prick every single one of those berries with the pin, and then they make, you know, their homemade slow gin by ending a bottle of Gordon's on top and some spoonfuls of sugar. Not to criticise my grandma's slow gin, because it's it's wonderful, and I've got great memories drinking that with her. But we certainly think this is better. We don't have to add any sugar, right? Because Shiraz grapes are full of it. We don't have to add any colouring because they're also full of colour. And slow berries are kind of rubbish, right, on their own, but grapes are delicious. So we think that all of those flavours of the Shiraz work perfectly with the gin. No, Zoe, slow gin is great, especially my grandma's. You've got to try my grandma's. And this is really good, just neat. If you were at my grandma's house, you would be drinking this in a little, you know, she's got these beautiful old crystal sherry glasses, and we would sip on it after dinner. So it's awesome just on ice, right? And I'm going to add a bit of ice to this now. And the awesome thing about gin, right, is it's full of all these botanical oils and flavours and compounds that are all quite tightly together. But you add a little bit of ice and suddenly they separate, and suddenly the flavour changes a bit, and you taste something a little bit different in the gin to what you might have tried before, right? Suzanne's been to Witney, amazing. Yeah, I lived in Witney for 5 years. Beautiful part of the world. That is awesome. Just like that over ice. However, that's quite dangerous, right? We get more complaints about this gin than about anything else, because people see Shiraz on the label, they think, oh my God, that's delicious, and they just start chugging it as though it's actually Shiraz, right? But you've got to remember, this is 3 times the strength of a bottle of Shiraz. That's why it's also better than slow gin, because, you know, slow gin would sit down around 24% alcohol perhaps. We've bumped this up to 37.8. So it's a proper gin. It's going to pack real punch in your drinks. Bartenders love it for making all sorts of drinks with. I'm going to garnish it. So even though botanically it is the same as the rare dried gin, right? So it's full of orange oil. It's got a beautiful spice base, but it is quite sweet from the grapes. So to offset that, I'm going to garnish it with a nice squeeze of lemon. So I'm just going to squeeze that in there, drop it in for the garnish, and then top it up with whatever tonic of your choice. So I'm just going to stick with the Mediterranean, and not too much of it either. You don't want to drown it. Give it a little stir, and you've got this beautiful pink drink that you can almost fool people as a cocktail, right? You're right, Sharon. That is a bit bloody lovely. Especially, and the wedge of lemon is perfect because you get the balance of the sweetness, the sharpness of the lemon, which means it also makes great cocktails like a spritz, right? Ditch your Aperol, try making a bloody spritz with that. Make a bloody sour, just a twist on the classic whiskey sour. Ditch your whiskey, but shake that up with some lemon juice, a little bit of sugar syrup, a splash of bitters. That is excellent. The other things we like, or I'll point out the other tonics I like. Fever Tree do a refreshingly light Indian or Mediterranean tonic, which I think are awesome. As you can tell, I am watching my figure, so they suit me down to the ground. The other one that's really good with the bloody Shiraz gin is lemon tonic or bitter lemon. Pour a bit of that in there, and then you don't need to necessarily do the squeeze of lemon. You make like a little cocktail basically just by using that and that. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. How are we going? Have I missed anything there in the Kate goes foraging and gets the Kilner jars out for the slow gin. Excellent. And loving the bloody Shiraz gin. Perfect. Tracy's on the North Oxfordshire border. Beautiful part of the world. Yeah, and Sharon, you do like to swear a little in the UK too. That is one of the great similarities between Aussies and Brits, isn't it? We can push it a little bit too far. I do a lot of these calls with our partners in the US as well, and we really need to watch our potty mouths then. Can make for a bit of fun. Great question, Suzanne. Our website is pretty great. It's full of, if you click through, the gin shop where you would go to order gins on the online store, there's some really great stories about the gins. There's little videos to watch, but most importantly, there's some really easy and delicious recipes on there as well. If you don't follow us on socials already as well, Four Pillars is also the #1 engaging liquor brand on social media in Australia. So that we beat all the beer brands, all the wine brands. We're lucky to have a really engaged social audience and a pretty great team of people who do some really interesting and fun content. So if you haven't given us a follow on the old Instagram machine or Facebook, do we still use Facebook? I don't know. I'm not a big Facebook guy, but jump on, give us a follow. I'm going to have another sip of that, and then we're going to talk about the next gin. Delicious. Tell me if you've got a favourite so far, by the way. You know what? I rarely drink that, but that is bloody good, especially at 1:40 a.m. It's quite a nice little evening treat, I guess. The next gin we're going to talk about is olive leaf gin, which is very different to the first two. Oh, am I on Instagram? Yes, I am on Instagram. I'm Wes Bainbridge, not Wesley, that's only formal, right? Wes Bainbridge, and I'm the only one in the world, so easy to find. That's BAIM for Melbourne Bridge. Olive leaf gin is our savoury style of gin. And I know that in the UK you've got gin mare, and what else fits in that category? Perhaps Malfi gin. But in Australia, there's really not much in the savoury gin category or the Mediterranean style gin category. Likewise, there were no gins made specifically for making a martini, which is why we made this gin here. Pretty much all of our other Four Pillars gins have always been about having that beautiful spice base and being all about citrus. And fresh citrus is kind of the hallmark of a Four Pillars gin. But Cameron, my boss, whose favourite drink is the martini, he decided to go the other way and make something deliberately savoury in style, but deliberately smooth and neat and clean with a beautiful mouthfeel for making a perfect martini or a Mediterranean Spanish-inspired gin tonica. So going into this gin are some pretty interesting things. As the name would suggest, we've used some olive leaf in distillation. Olive leaf is used in some teas and things like that. Imagine it's got this beautiful herbaceousness to it, but it's really green and savoury. I know green's not a flavour, but you kind of get what I mean. Green and savoury and fresh, which works really well alongside some bay leaf and some fresh rosemary as well. So three ingredients that would be just as suited to your spaghetti bolognese, as they are in this gin. The most unique thing about this one is our use of cold-pressed Australian olive oil in distillation. And it's not just any old olive oil that you can get from the supermarket. We buy our olive oil from a producer called Cobram Estate, who is probably Australia's leading producer of beautiful single origin olive oils. They export all over the world as well, actually. They're huge, but they do these really beautiful special olive oils. And so we use a blend of 3 different olive oils in distillation that give us 3 different flavors, I guess. One more fruity, one more peppery, one more kind of rounded. And we literally pour the olive oil into the pot of our still. So in distillation, we're boiling the olive oil with the alcohol to extract oil from the oil. Sounds kind of crazy, right? But it somehow works. The olive leaf is from the same producer, from Cobram Estate. So we get the olive oil and the olive leaf from the same varieties. I could show off and tell you the varieties, so I will. We use the Hoja Blanca, which is a Spanish variety, the Pical, another Spanish variety, and then the Coratina, which is an Italian variety of olive oil. And you don't really think of Australia and think of olive oil, right? But these guys are up in the dry south, or the north of Victoria. So in the south, but in the dry, warm sort of inland area, which is perfect for producing olives, for growing olives. So really, really spectacular produce. Again, another example of how the weather and the climate and the soil here in Australia produces some awesome ingredients. So olive oil goes into here, and what that does is that creates some beautiful mouthfeel and some texture to this gin. In addition to that, we use some macadamia nuts. Name a more Australian ingredient than the macadamia nut. Indigenous and native to the north of Australia. The macadamia nut has got an oil that is fatty and buttery and rich and smooth. So again, that builds a little bit of texture in the gin. We get these big rounded oils coming through that basically give you a nice mouthfeel, right? We use a little bit of lemon and then a little bit of a grapefruit peel just to brighten it up. And if you're a martini drinker, I want you to tell me in the chat if you are a martini drinker. And I mean a proper classic gin martini, not an espresso martini or a porn star martini, although we love them, of course. But if you're going to drink martinis, it's pretty much straight gin, right? It's some gin and a little bit of vermouth diluted down. So you want a gin that's going to feel really pleasurable on your palate, and we think we've nailed it in this. This is my absolute favourite martini gin in the world. However, it also makes a really great gin and tonic, or as we would say, a gin tonica, right? The Spanish style. And if you've been to Barcelona or Valencia or even Madrid, you get the massive bowl gin and tonics, right? Where they put, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 garnishes into the glass. Yes, a gin martini, fabulous. On your Wendy and Nicola. I tend to have my martinis a little, because there's some great vermouths these days, right, as well. So my martinis are becoming wetter as the vermouth, I think, gets better. I'm going to show you how we make this one. And I've got my glass from the freezer again. And I've gone for the big bold glass just because I like to drink this one and pretend that I'm not in a very dead bar in Sydney at 1:45 a.m. I prefer to close my eyes and pretend that I'm in Barcelona, sat on one of the plazas, watching people go by, sipping on my gin and tonic. We'll be doing it soon though, hopefully. So a big old measure in there, 50 mils again. Heaps of ice. And I'm going to go for not one garnish this time, but I'm going to go for 2 garnishes in my G&T. I think it's a 2 garnish max though. You go to some places and they've got, some fruits and some leaves or some flowers and all sorts going on. To me, that's a little too much, keep it at 1 or 2. So I put my wheel or my half wheel of lemon in there because we've used lemons in distillation, so that makes sense. And I'm going to go for a nice little sprig of rosemary, which I literally plucked out of my garden before I came here this evening. Once again, I'm going to go for the Mediterranean tonic. No, I'm not. I lied. It's, that bottle's empty, so I'm going to finish that off and use a little bit of refreshingly light as well. But not too much. Don't want to drown it. And that, what we started selling, when we launched this gin, we started selling these big gin and tonics in our bar in this big glass. And they became the #1 drink because people would see somebody else walk past with that in their hand. And you just go, my God, I want to drink one of those because that looks like the most refreshing gin and tonic. And it is chin chin, or salute if we're in Spain. No, salute. I just did Italian, didn't I? Whatever. Oh, when you lived in Spain, Wendy's the best. Lived in Spain for 10 years. Awesome. And that is completely different to that, yet equally delicious. And they're my two favourite gins in the world, actually. Look, obviously I'm incredibly biased, right? I work for Four Pillars Gins. I'm always going to talk about Four Pillars Gin. So I should discuss some other one. One of my favourite gins of all time is Tanqueray 10. I think that is one of the best gins on the planet. Hendrick's is obviously also an exceptional premium gin. Some great stuff coming out of Japan. However, these are my two favourite gins. And that is really good. God, now I've got all three in front of me. Obviously, I haven't been finishing them all because I'm trying to continue to do a good job for you guys. But I don't know which one to drink now. You're liking the idea of rosemary? You like cardamom in the rare? Yeah, nice one, Nicola. Cardamom tends to be one of those spices that people would love or hate a little bit, or I detect it really easily in our rare dry gin. But if you like it, a couple of those in the glass is awesome. What you don't want to do is accidentally bite into a cardamom pod. We've probably all done that when enjoying a green curry or something, and it's all you taste for about the next 10 minutes. Be wary of the cardamom. You're just trying the Shiraz Gin and it's lovely. Awesome, Jessica. Yeah, keep the comments coming through because we've run out of gins to taste now. So I'm really just gonna come up with any absolute rubbish that I can for the next 11 minutes. You like Tanqueray Orange, but after this you're gonna try Four Pillars. Yes, Claire McGregor. And Lydia, I can confirm I'm a lot of fun on a night out. I will see you in London on July 11, which is when I land in the great city, and it happens to be my birthday, so I'll be getting straight out on the tune. You're going to promote these gins. They're really tasty. Awesome. So you're all travel agents, right? Well, that's at least what I've been led to believe. So yes, if you can promote our gins in the UK, that's awesome. That will keep my colleague Claire in a job. We're certainly trying to grow our footprint in the UK and in other parts of the world. But the other thing is what I've done today kind of virtually is what we do day in, day out here at our distillery, here at our Sydney bar as well. And so, we want you guys to have these experiences up your sleeve as well, that when you're sending people on a holiday to Melbourne, that to say to them, head out to the Yarra for the day. You know what? Here's a couple of wineries to try out, and you've got to go to the Four Pillars distillery while you're there as well. Absolutely. Oh, I've never been to Chester. I won't know what's hidden. Yes. Entourage, awesome. Colette's leading the entourage. Oh, the best. You know what? It's all Daryl. It's actually also the best Friday morning at 1:50 a.m. that I've had for quite a while. Fortunately, I've got tomorrow off though. That was my bargaining chip. Happy to come and do any gin tastings when I'm in the UK. But no, I hope you guys have enjoyed hearing a little bit about Aussie Gin and what we think is special. And yeah, hopefully we'll see some of you over there. But even more importantly, hope to see some of you out here soon. If you're coming to visit here in Sydney or at our Hills Hill Distillery, absolutely get in touch through Claire or whoever, and we'll make sure we look after you guys and give you an awesome time and fill you up with plenty of gin.
Yeah, let us know. I think Wes has mostly covered most of your questions, but just let us know if there's anything we haven't answered, and we'll send through some places where you can grab a Four Pillars in the UK across different cities. I know you guys are well spread out across the country. So yeah, massive thank you to Wes for all your 2 a.m. energy.
My pleasure. Nice to meet you guys. Thanks for the enthusiasm in the chat. Obviously, sometimes these things can be, quite challenging when you're not getting anything back. But this was good fun. So thank you so much. Enjoy the gins and take care. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.